Hello everyone, this is the Turbo Wing DVR Cyclops 3. This is a camera and DVR all-in-one solution. I think this has been around for a while, maybe I just missed out on it. But it's a relatively simple thing. It's a CMOS camera. It's 18 millimeters wide by 18 millimeters tall. With short leads like I have, it weighs 4.42 grams. With the audio cable and connector, it weighs 4.75 grams. It's got a simple one-button operation. You just push the button, the little LED next to the button and flashes indicate you're recording. You do need to press the button again before you disconnect power. And that red light will go solid, indicating that your recording is finished. Let's take a little close spin around the front. Hopefully you can see any details you'd like to see. Notice there at the front, it says I/O up there. We'll talk about that in a minute. Focus camera. See, this seems to be the major connector right up here. It's having a hard time focusing with both hands. There we go. So this has a bunch of pins on it that are connecting the front board and back board. I suspect that's where the DVR portion ties into the camera portion, the image sensor. And a little look at the back. A little look at the side. It's got a fairly long nose on it, but if you're thinking about mounting it, it's not much bigger than a run cam or other micro CCD cameras. And I ordered 2 of these, and I got 3 in 2 different versions. So in this form factor, so I think this cable up here is how you would control it if you chose to use it. The microphone on the front is fairly decent. We'll get to that here when we look at the HD footage. I don't want to spend a long time here. I think the main thing for me that I wanted to convey about this video is there is still some latency. I'm not doing a latency test. You'll just have to trust me that as a pilot on the sticks, when you move it, it does not respond as you expect it to. It's slightly delayed. And let's just go ahead and jump into the DVR a bit. So outside of that delay that's somewhat slight, you'll also notice that we have the red timer down at the bottom, and it's kind of large and obnoxious. I would much prefer that be in a different location and be a lot smaller. Quite frankly, if I were to use this camera, I just want it to be a dot or something. You might feel differently. Also, you'll notice that the image isn't very good in the DVR feed. So we've seen a lot of other CMOS cameras that do a lot better, and that's kind of important. I'm going to be quiet here just for a moment so that you can get an idea of the audio quality that comes from that microphone. Here in the HD footage, it's actually pretty good. It's recording at 30 frames per second. It is using the Motion JPEG format. It stores the file inside an AVI container. And it's not half bad, and you can kind of see from how I'm flying that I'm not comfortable going very fast. I'm not comfortable getting very close to stuff. I actually ease into trying to get close to stuff. Matter of fact, when I tried to do flips, one got out of control on me pretty quickly because the machine, I think, wasn't quite where I thought it was. I was going on my timing. I do one later in the flight, and it turns out okay. But that delay, I think, would stop me from using it as my FPV camera. I think where this fits for mini quads is more of a secondary camera. You might be able to design a case for this. I would just get rid of any other leads that you might have for the camera. In the case of the one that I show in that video, I tested this one as well. That one has the white connector up there, and it also came with a VTX. And the image was the same. As if there's any difference, it's undiscernible to me. Whether it's latency we're talking about or image quality, I couldn't tell the difference between the 2 cameras. I noticed on the Banggood website that they don't show the white wire, so it appears more like this camera versus this one has the white wire. So I'm not sure if this is an older version and I got it by mistake, but they all came in the same shipping, the same package, and here's the third one that I got as well. I did not test this one to see if it was any different. I'm presuming that these 2 are the same and this one might have been different, but in my experience, they weren't different. But so back to where it could be of use. If you were to design a case, maybe we can make the little pigtail, plug it in. You just get 5 volts off of your flight controller if it supports a secondary camera, and then you could use it much like you would a GoPro session, just a real small, real light one, you know, at 4.5 grams thereabouts, You have somewhat of a TPU printed case around it, and it probably come in around 5.5 to 6.5 grams. And that's something that we can live with in micros, so that might be a place. I would prefer, obviously, if we could lay this flat. I don't think separating this is going to work quite like we do with our typical micro cameras where you just separate the pins, and that's because we have this large connector up here. At least I believe this to be a connector. You can kind of see if I get the light just right. It might be a press fit that we could pull that apart. But I'm not familiar enough with these electronic components to know whether we could actually pull that apart or not. It is a spring-loaded container for our SD card, and you can see it sticks out there a fair bit. So when you mount this up, you're going to need to have some clearance, obviously, because we've got no other way of getting the HD footage off. So if you design a case, we're going to have to leave that open, of course, too. But I didn't have any troubles, but I've only flown with this camera about 4 or 5 times. Obviously, I tried 2 different cameras, 2 different VTXs. Didn't notice any difference. That's really all I have to say about this. I think it could be a good, cheap secondary camera for capturing some HD footage. It has an M7 lens on it. I would like a larger field of view. It's 120 degrees vertical and 100 degrees horizontal. That may or may not be accurate. That's the printed specs. So if we could get another M7 lens with a wider angle and it worked with the image sensor, all right, I'd be interested in pursuing this a little bit more. If you know of an M7 lens that's a good lens that's running 150 degrees, I would be interested in knowing about that. Please leave that in the comment section down below. Tell me what you think. Maybe it's for wings. You could do maybe some fixed wing stuff. At least for close proximity with mini quads, micro quads, nanos, I can't recommend you flying with this. It's a swing and a miss as far as that feature goes, but I do think it has some life, possibly as a secondary camera for capturing some high definition or 720p footage. Some of you might be wondering, where are the vehicle reviews? And they're coming. You know, I went on vacation, and after being disconnected from everything for 10 days. It takes a while for me to queue up. The weather wasn't great, but I have gotten a few days. I've got some products here that you may be familiar with, some other products that you might not be familiar with that are coming that are going to be at least very interesting. I've also been doing a fair bit of building here at nighttime, just kind of little projects which I may or may not be bringing to the channel, but flight videos, videos of entire vehicles, they are coming. You should see those in the coming week. If you have any comments or questions or suggestions about this little guy, leave that in the section down below. I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.